Chris Knight, and I'm grateful for Novus International giving me the opportunity to share a few introductory comments of my time with Dr. Julia Dibner. Now, I know a lot of you here are colleagues, collaborators, and friends of Julia. Thank you so much for being here. And I particularly want to thank those of you who have agreed to speak about Julia's body of scientific work. It's a great tribute to a special intellect and a very special person. And I'm certain that through your efforts, those who knew Julia and those who haven't yet had the privilege will get a clear sense of the magnitude of what Julia accomplished in her career, in large part with the collaborative efforts of scores of you. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have spent literally every day of my professional career working side by side with Julia. And it's hard to capture in words what that's meant personally and professionally. About 2 weeks after she passed, I was having dinner with a former bishop of Durham in England. He's a wonderful guy and a great tour guide. I'd spent the whole week with him. And he asked me what I had in store for myself when I got back to the States. Kind of a safe conversation starter, but what I had in store for me was hosting a memorial for Julia in our home for all the St. Louis folks to drop by and share stories with Steve and the rest of us remembering Julia. So this perceptive bishop recognized this was important to me, and he wanted to know a little bit about Julia. And of course, where can you start? So I came up with a sentence. I worked with her almost every day of my career, and everything I did, she made better. I doubt I can say that about anyone else, but then there was nobody else like Julia. Now, I just want to close by saying these types of remembrances tend to be very solemn. And I just want to say that Julia and solemnity did not always go hand in hand in my experience. We had so much fun at work. And most of the time it was making fun of ourselves. Our most devastatingly failed, poorly conceived, naive experiments. We were literally willing to try anything, and occasionally it worked. I guess the basic humility of Julia not taking herself too seriously is one of the greatest gifts that she gave me and that hangs with me today. And of course, yes, we had lots of happy hours and tons of fun with those. Thanks ever so much for joining us today. Peace to you all.
Hey, good afternoon. Dan Mayer, CEO at Novus. A couple comments as it relates to Julia Dibner, a very dear lady and certainly somebody that had a major impact on my life. When I think back to joining Novus in 2007, I spent an afternoon with Julia and learned an awful lot about not only Novus and the technologies and the impact that we had in the industry through Alamut, but Julia taught me about animal nutrition, about what our products were doing to improve the food system across the world. And we talked about mode of action and digestibility and a lot of different things that were way over my head. But we talked about where Novus was trying to go with new products and how we would talk and market them from solutions around oxidative stress and all kinds of things that certainly were over my head. But Julia had a major impact on how I thought about improving Novus in the marketplace through an expansion of products and solutions. Certainly how to work with people, nutritionists, technical people in the industry, R&D for development. I will never forget that afternoon, and she continued to be a very strong confidant to me when we would brainstorm. You know, when I think about words that come to mind, Julia was a visionary, clearly passionate about this food industry. Very humble, really did not want to be out in front, but had a major impact on many people in the industry, customers, employees, young people getting into the industry. So one lady expanded huge amount of touches across the global food system in an animal nutrition. And for that, we all should be extremely grateful and humbled, quite honestly, to have called her a colleague and a friend, and certainly one that had a major impact on our industry.
Although I didn't really work directly with Julia very much, I observed her supporting many other researchers, students, and visiting scholars while at Novus. And she always asked about my work, whether it was about poultry, other livestock species, or even some of the exotic critters that I worked with in different places and various countries. Outside work, Julia could always be counted on as a lively dinner conversationalist, and she just showed that a balanced life is really essential for a scientist, balanced personal life as a scientist. Some of the words that come to mind when I think of Julia are that she's soft-spoken, but a very strong and solid scientist. She's detail-oriented, kind, and patient, and she's got a real artistic flair that very much impressed me. She's also a lover of nature, a trait that we share, and I do indeed miss her smiling face.
I had the pleasure of working with Julia throughout her tremendous career at Novus. Julia Dibner always reminded me of another Julia, Julia Childs. Both had great passion for their work and conveyed their messages with great excitement. Dr. Dibner's voice would hit high octaves as she discussed electron microscope pictures of nature's work. She could be showing some pictures of a deadly pathogen and be so intrigued by what she saw that it would bring out high-pitched shrieks of wonderment. "Oh my, look at that!" We'd be thinking, "Damn, Julia, this bug is killing us." She always held my attention due to her excitement and fascination of the beauty and science behind whatever system she was discussing. She always had great pictures and diagrams intertwined into her presentations, which made it easy to follow her logic and theories. Presentations on science can be very dry and lose your attention, but not Julia's. She had me sitting on the edge of my seat as I listened to her presentations, and I loved the post-presentation discussions. She was one of the best scientists that I've had the privilege to work with throughout my career. Julia would take me back to what made science and nature so awe-inspiring to me and others. It was contagious. Excitement, fun, passion, wonder, brilliant scientist, and friend are words that come to mind when I think of Julia. She was one of the best.
Hi, I'm Bob Burrish, Poultry Tech Service here at Novus. For most of my career, from my days at Perina Mills and Tyson Foods through to Novus, I've had the good fortune of often working with Julia. My respect for her was unwavering, and I always admired her significant contributions to our industry. I have fond memories of traveling with Julia, often to international conferences and related customer meetings. What stood out was her incredible ability for connecting with any audience. She'd always emphasized that she was a cell biologist and not a nutritionist, but her brilliance shone through as she easily transitioned from deep scientific discussions with experts to simplifying complex ideas for less scientific production teams. It truly was a gift to witness. Traveling with Julia also taught me a lot about perspective, as she had a wonderful way of not sweating the small stuff, especially when related to international logistics. I have vivid memories of guiding her through maze of airports, baggage claim, and customs on several trips to China and Europe. Julia's presence and impact will be deeply missed within Novus and throughout the industry. Thanks for the opportunity to share some of these memories of Julia.
This is Mamdouh Sifri. Dear Julia, we honor you. Thank you for enriching us. Julia is a friend, a sister, a mother, a teacher, a human being. Thank you for being Julia. Julia. Julia was the most invited speaker to the Informal Nutrition Symposium. That's not a small feat. So I just want to show you a few of the lectures she gave us, show you the breadth and the depth of her knowledge and contribution. She talked about organic acids as a model to study the impact on the gut microflora. She talked about microbial imprinting in the digestive system. Another subject was the digestive system, it's all in the gut. She talked about also the challenges about early development. You can see a wide variety of subjects. All are very highly scientific. For all that, we honor Julia as one of our beautiful mentors to all of us. One of the very few industry scientists who has gained this award. Now, many of you know Julia as very serious. Don't touch her when she's going to present because you might upset the thinking process. However, Julia joined me in my retirement 2015, and this was a different Julia, the happiest, the more relaxed, beautiful. She had a fantastic time, and here we are. That's me and Julia at my retirement. Of course, joining us a few beautiful friends like Ernie Pearson, David Calabota. The thing which really amazes me is the way her colleagues looked at her as a beautiful scientist and as a beautiful human being. You can see the respect, the admiration for Julia. Now, finally, of course, as you know, David Calabota would not shut up. So finally, Julia took the microphone and told him to sit down, and then she started getting engaged with us in the discussions. I conclude here by showing a picture for Steve, Julia, and myself. Thank you, Steve, for all the wonderful things, for the support, for driving and bringing Julia and participating with her. I'd like to thank also Chris, Knight, Mercedes, and all who helped to put this symposium together. Thank you, Novus, for all the support and the confidence in Julia and the scientists. Have a wonderful symposium. Thanks to all the speakers. God bless all of you. Bye. This is Mamdouh.
Dr. Julia Dibner was a remarkable scientist, mentor, and friend. I had the privilege of working with Julia early in my career, and her influence shaped not just the path I followed, but the kind of scientist and person I strive to be. Her love for science was contagious, and her curiosity and deep understanding of cell biology helped uncover important insights into the physiology of animal disease. Julia taught me to trust the data, even when it challenged our assumptions. There's no good or bad data, as he will say. It is what it is, and it's our job to figure it out. Her humble, open approach to science was a lesson in integrity and critical thinking. Julia also taught me how to bring science into the real world, to identify the real issues facing the poultry industry, and then using science, working at the intersection of physiology and nutrition to solve meaningful problems. Julia will be deeply missed, but her influence lives on in the work we continue and the values established in so many of us. Thank you, Julia.
I met Dr. Dibner 20 years ago when I joined Novus in 2005. And I was struck by her incredible intellect, her curiosity, and of course I knew quickly in my early years at Novus of her and her reputation and what an icon she was, what a force she had been, kind of establishing the foundational research that gave birth to a lot of our technologies, kind of anchored our understanding of the gut of the animal. So this was incredible. She was humble. She wanted to know what we were doing with customers, the pains they were having, because this is what she was interested in. Dr. Dibner was working already in 1983 on supplemental methionine sources in liver cells, big primary cultures of liver cells. So this is 20 plus years before my first interactions with her. So I was in awe of Dr. Dibner, thankful for the work she did in establishing the foundation of our business and her contributions to the industry. She really made a difference. What an incredible person. Very happy I had the privilege to interact with her for many years in my tenure in the company, and always carry her in a very special place in my heart.
Hi, my name is Todd Applegate, and I serve as the department head here at the University of Georgia. I first met Julia when I was a graduate student, likely at a PSA meeting. Now, while I don't remember how or when, I do really recall being amazed on how she utilized images to bolster the explanation of complex scientific concepts during a talk. And during discussions afterwards and in subsequent meetings, she welcomed me to come to the Novus labs to learn some antibody staining methods that they were using at the time and then incorporate into my work. I'm very thankful for her keen interest in fostering and mentoring the next generation. And I think the words that really come to mind when I think of Julia really is a passion or a zeal for science, respectful discourse of that science, and being able to really convey those complex scientific concepts to a wide range of audiences.
Hi, I'm Kirk Leasing, a recently retired professor at University of California at Davis. I met Julia and Dr. Dibner about in 1985. I was doing amino acid research and just starting off as an assistant professor at University of Illinois. And she was kind of getting to be the go-to person for understanding amino acids, especially sulfur amino acids. And I met her at some meetings. We had long discussions at posters and after talks, and we became really good friends very quickly. I've seen her at meetings pretty much every few years for more than 30 years now. But I've always been impressed with her as a scientist. She's one of the people in poultry nutrition that can truly span all the different areas, from molecular biology to biochemistry to cell biology, up to whole animal nutrition, and even the population level. Most of her early research was on sulfur amino acids and some of the derivatives, and her style of research greatly impressed me because she, again, could span many different layers of research, but also when she did work, it was always extremely well designed and extremely well executed, repeated, always repeatable. And so as I was going through my assistant professor or associate professor phase especially, really looked towards her as a model for putting together a research program. Her work was really important for the academic community as well as the poultry industry, because it was the first one that really detailed some of the cellular and physiological aspects of sulfur amino acid metabolism in poultry. She took her developments from her basic biology and applied it to practical nutrition, and then it became available to the industry. She published an impressive number of excellent quality papers on sulfur amino acids in poultry, and she was frequently invited to speak at conferences, really high-level scientific conferences, as well as industry workshops and nutrition conferences. And people in the industry, and certainly the people in academics, really trusted her work simply because it was such high quality. More recently, Julia turned her interest into intestinal development and health, and more or less at the same time, I was doing the same, especially looking at the immunology aspects of in poultry intestines. But she was really kind of pioneer in the field in the early days and provided the intellectual framework in this early field and became a leader in it. Now, I'm sure Julia conducted lots of research that was for her company, and that much of that was probably unpublished and proprietary research. But she did publish a tremendous numbers of papers in scientific literature. And again, they were very high quality. They were rarely product oriented. They were mostly just uncovering some of the basic metabolic aspects that underpin nutrition. During her career, she collaborated with an impressive number of really great scientists throughout the world. And everybody wanted to collaborate with her because she brought so much to the table. I know firsthand that her academic colleagues held her in really high esteem because of her integrity and her skills in working out the basic aspects related to poultry nutrition. One of the most important things to me was that Julia was really an important mentor for many people in the field, including me, because as I mentioned before, in my early days, I kind of looked towards her as a role model in setting up a research program. She was also really important with many of my graduate students. She took care to meet them at meetings, to go to their posters, get to know them, and to give them guidance about their careers and their research. And oftentimes she continued on working with them after they got jobs in either industry or academics. I think she's so easy to get to know and to work with because she had a really free-flowing personality, but a humble presentation, and it just really made it easy for her to get to know people in a comfortable way so that she could work with them and give them guidance if they were younger and help them with their careers. So I always found Julie to be a stellar scientist, an excellent colleague, a very fun person to be with, especially at meetings, especially after the meetings and at the happy hours and things. And she was a great friend over the years, and I really miss her. I think of her frequently, and she was such a wonderful asset to the poultry community. I thank Novus for putting this together because she surely deserves tremendous amounts of gratitude from all of us. So thank you for listening.